Horror story. An experience of my own. I was born prematurely and had poor health as a child, often falling sick. My parents, older brother, and I lived away from our hometown, and we could only visit our ancestral home during the 4th of July holiday. Our ancestral home was located in a very old rural town. I remember an incident that happened when I was 7 years old during one of our visits. It was in 1998, and at that time, the conditions in the town were not very good, but the houses were made of bricks and had classic American architecture. I recall the layout of the house being traditional. Upon entering, there was a partition with the word "Welcome" written on it, and to the right was the backyard. On the right-hand side was the kitchen, and on the left-hand side were the storage room and an outdoor restroom. Straight ahead were 2 rooms. The one on the right was where my grandmother lived, and the one on the left was where my uncle lived. My grandmother's house had old-fashioned furnishings, with a religious cross directly facing the entrance. Below the cross was a square table and old-style armchairs. To the left was the living room, with a wooden sofa and a coffee-making machine. Behind another small door was my grandmother's bedroom, which still had a traditional 4-poster bed. There was an oak cabinet on the bed, filled with various small items, and below the bed were several wooden chests containing clothes and bedding. The incident I'm about to share occurred in my grandmother's room. At that time, my younger cousin, who was 2 years younger than me, lived with my uncle. Additionally, 2 years prior, my aunt had given birth to a pair of twin sisters. It should have been a joyous occasion, but one of the twins was born with mental and physical disabilities, while the other twin was perfectly healthy. Out of affection for the healthier twin, I decided to spend the night at my uncle's place. My parents went to visit my eldest uncle's family, and my older brother stayed at my grandmother's house. For some reason, during dinner time, around 9 o'clock, I began to feel uncomfortable. Firstly, I noticed many mice running around in the house's beams, which frightened me. Furthermore, I felt a strange sense of oppression, causing the hairs on my body to stand on end, as if something unusual was present. It's possible that children with poor health are more susceptible to sensing negative energies. According to my mother, the day I was born coincided with heavy negative energy, and she even had a dream about it. In any case, it was an unsettling feeling that made me lose my appetite. However, what puzzled me was that the healthier twin sister kept crying. I wasn't home often, but whenever I visited, she would cling to me and enjoy playing with me. The family tried to console her, and eventually she stopped crying, but soon she developed a high fever. At that time, my grandmother resorted to traditional methods to lower her temperature, but I noticed that my uncle's family didn't seem as concerned, though they appeared somewhat fearful. Later on, I found out that they had grown accustomed to such occurrences. It wasn't just about the twin sister frequently running a fever. They had become accustomed to the reasons behind it. Even though they were accustomed to it, there was still an underlying fear. I witnessed the twin sister crying while saying that our grandfather had returned to see us and asked about the well-being of the unhealthy twin sister. At that time, I was still young and only knew that our grandfather had passed away before my brother was born. It is said that our grandfather's birthday coincided with the day of worship, and both my brother and my 4th uncle share the same birthday with our grandfather. To avoid superstitions, my 4th uncle and brother later changed their birth dates. However, I noticed the change in the expressions of my grandmother and uncle. My uncle looked at my grandmother, but she remained silent. After a while, she brought out a glass and a spoon. To this day, I still don't know if the glass contained alcohol or water. My grandmother placed the items on the square table and muttered something. Astonishingly, the spoon stood upright in the liquid without any support. During that time, the healthier twin sister continued crying, and I also started experiencing a headache. Once the spoon stood upright, my grandmother continued speaking, sharing details about the family, and advising us not to worry and not to visit frequently. After a while, the spoon fell down, and my grandmother stopped talking. The twin sister also stopped crying, and I no longer felt uncomfortable. I thought everything was fine. That night, I slept in the same room with the healthier twin sister, the other twin sister, my aunt, and my uncle. It was around 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning when the twin sister started crying again, saying that our grandfather was concerned and wanted to check on us. I felt a chilling sensation, even under the blanket. The air felt colder. The twin sister cried even louder. Soon, my uncle and grandmother came into the room. This time, my grandmother didn't bring a glass and spoon, but directly addressed my grandfather's photograph, delivering a sermon. She continued talking for a long time, while the twin sister showed no response, and the healthier twin sister kept crying. After about half an hour, my uncle and aunt left the room for a while, and when they returned, they gave the twin sister a glass of water to drink. After drinking the water, the twin sister stopped crying, and my discomfort gradually subsided. Though I shivered in that peculiar feeling, I didn't express it as I wasn't good at expressing myself. However, once the twin sister stopped crying, I felt fine, and after a restless night, I eventually fell asleep. The next day, my grandmother told me that since my aunt gave birth to the twin sisters, this had happened several times. It was said that our grandfather was concerned and frequently visited the house. That day, the day we returned home, our grandfather had made a visit, although I didn't understand it at the time. When I grew older, I realized that it was not easy for a spirit to make such visits unless it was during Halloween, the Day of the Dead, or a specific Memorial Day. I don't know whether the visit had any negative impact on my grandfather, but I could feel his care and concern for our family. Horror story: My Enchanted Grandmother. I was born in a small town in rural Indiana. Due to my family's financial struggles and my parents' constant work commitments, I ended up living with my grandparents. From the age of 5, I would frequently encounter inexplicable and eerie occurrences. Those strange incidents left an indelible mark on my memory, as if they happened only yesterday. When I turned 5, due to my young naivety, I accidentally set fire to the family's cherished heirloom, a statue of the Virgin Mary, using a lighter. From that day onward, supernatural phenomena became a daily affair in our household, but bizarrely, they only affected me. At night, the locked door of my room would mysteriously swing open from the inside. I would hear distinct footsteps and persistent knocking, accompanied by unsettling glimpses of faces peering through my bedroom window. Strange voices would emanate from beneath my bed, their words clear but incomprehensible. These events repeated relentlessly, initially instilling an overwhelming sense of fear within me. During that time, every night became a nerve-wracking ordeal as I struggled to fall asleep. Only when my grandmother stayed by my side did I find solace and manage to calm down. It was in my 6th year that an unforgettable incident occurred. One day, I stayed out late playing, and upon returning home, I discovered that all the food had been consumed. Left with an empty stomach, I decided to cook some noodles for myself in the kitchen. I vividly recall that it was around 9:30 p.m. with the noodles already cooked. I reached for a bunch of green onions, my excitement palpable. However, in the blink of an eye, my mind exploded as if struck by lightning. I felt an immediate paralysis spreading through my entire body, likely due to her unnerving proximity. Floating about a meter away from me was a woman dressed in antiquated attire. Her ensemble was entirely black, which accentuated her pallid, bloodless complexion. Her hair cascaded from midair to the floor, and her lips were crimson, reminiscent of bloodstains. Yet the most chilling aspect was the thick, swirling black aura emanating from her being. At that moment, cold sweat trickled down my face. It was my first encounter with such a situation, and I found myself at a loss for what to do. Despite her eyes being partially concealed by 2 locks of hair, I still sensed her unrelenting gaze fixed upon me. She made no threatening gestures, but I was genuinely terrified. I desperately hoped it was a mere hallucination, so I blinked and closed my eyes repeatedly, yet she persisted, hovering in front of me. The door lay behind me, offering a passage to the outside world. However, I was entirely paralyzed, incapable of uttering a single word. Panic engulfed me as I grappled with the overwhelming uncertainty. As time ticked away, I grew increasingly weary, even though only a few minutes had passed. But it felt as if several decades had elapsed. I had no idea how long this woman intended to keep me trapped there. Then, a harsh yet oddly gentle voice whispered in my ear, "How long does it take to cook noodles?" After a moment of admonishment, I mustered a polite response, "Almost finished." Miraculously, I found myself able to speak again, and the woman before me vanished into thin air. I stood there, astounded by the sudden turn of events. It felt as if my grandmother possessed some mystical power, banishing the ominous presence that had loomed over me. From that point onward, I returned to a life of tranquility and warmth with my grandparents. Although our existence was modest, I cherish those moments as some of the happiest in my life. Every day, I would frolic carefree in the fields, awakening to the aroma of the delicious meals my grandmother lovingly prepared. She had a sharp tongue and often scolded me, but I could sense her tender heart. While others would label her a harridan behind her back, I knew the true nature of my grandmother. She had the ability to drive away the wild dogs that sought to harm me, and protect me from the classmates who took advantage of my parents' absence. This was my grandmother, an enigmatic figure misunderstood by many, but possessing a tremendous and awe-inspiring power.